Hey, Adam Hostettler here. We got a short tutorial today on some core compositing basics. I've got about a 5-second clip here to demo a few of these techniques. We'll be going over them pretty quickly. This isn't really meant to be a professional grade clip, but rather just to kind of get across how well I know how to do these things. So, let's see. We'll start out with showing you the final clip. This is what it's going to be looking like at the end. So you can see we've got a superimposed screen on the left here with the Wii U gamepad. And then we've also got this little soldier guy over here, which came with a green screen in the background, which we had to key out. So yeah, to go over kind of like an overview of what we'll be doing in this short tutorial video, we'll start out with importing just the plain clip with none of this in it, without the soldier in the screen. And then after we get started with that, we will start tracking this screen right here in Mocha. We'll be using planar tracking to track this screen. So in order to place this other video on top, superimposed as the screen, that will allow us to track the movement of the screen throughout the video and match the overlaying video to that. And then also after that, we will be taking this clip of the little soldier guy shooting his gun at you. It originally came with a green screen in the background, so we will have to shrink that down to fit on this little stack of games here. And then we will also have to key out the green in the background. So we'll be doing those two things. And finally, we will do a little bit of color correcting to kind of give the whole scene a little bit of a blue tinge to it, kind of get that movie theater feel to it. All right, so we'll start off with just creating a new project, importing all of our files into After Effects here. Let me get the original clip, the screen we will be putting on top, and the little soldier guy. Alright, so we'll start off with making a new composition here. I took this from YouTube. We'll have to crop it a little bit more to get exactly what we want. So we can just use this to trim the comp to the work area, and that way we don't have to deal with all that extra footage. Alright, so now we have our short 5 or so second clip. I usually let it play through just to kind of get itself caught up. Let this little green bar turn green. Alright, so now that we've got this in there, we can just go straight into tracking. So let's select this clip here, go to Animation, Track, and Mocha. Okay, so you'll get this little dialog box after Mocha launches. You want to make sure all these settings are correct. Generally they are. So we'll write that. Alright, so you will get your clip that you want to track. For some reason this one doesn't quite give me the correct length, but that's easily corrected just by dragging these red bars. If you want to be sure, you can just go back here and make sure when you go all the way back to the beginning. has a 10 there, so if I go here, it should probably be at the 10. And then I cut that last frame out of there. Alright, so we go back to the beginning. Okay, so now we have our clip that we want to track the screen on. We'll want to go here. I'll zoom in a little bit first. Pan over. Click on this Create X-Spline Layer tool. This is what we use to start the planar, to map out the plane for the planar tracking. So we want to click on each corner of this screen, making a box. Right click to exit out, and then stretch these corners out. And fine-tune these points to be right on the edge of the screen. Okay, so now we've got the screen mapped out. We'll just want to go ahead and click track forward and let it kind of do its thing. You can see along the way that it kind of jumps back and forth over here on the left, and towards the end it will actually have shifted a few pixels and shrunk. We can fine-tune that afterwards. Like I said earlier, this will just be a pretty basic rundown of what you have to do just to get the basics across. If you were to do this and want to make it look really nice, you'd want to spend a lot of time tracking it, so that way you don't have to deal with little adjustments afterwards in After Effects. Alright, so now that it's done, let me zoom back out here. You can see that the final area that we started out mapping it perfectly on the screen, and now it's kind of shifted a little bit. So we can go back here and adjust it back to where we want it to be. And this happens for a number of reasons. Here, primarily, it was because as the scene was moving to the left, it became blurry, so the trackers had a hard time going from a nice crisp edge to a blurry edge, and that's why it jumped around a few times. So now that we've fixed it and reshaped our box, I guess, I usually just go and click track backwards. Kind of go forwards and backwards, see which one gives you the closest track. If you come along and you see that it's starting to mess up, you can just click stop and readjust it. Make sure it's all correct. And then just continue tracking backwards. And it'll give you these little dots that show you that you adjusted it at that point. So in order to get the best possible track, you're going to want to find the clearest crisp edges or corners. Corners, actually, not edges, are the best. And you'll want to adjust it whenever it moves too far away from what you want to track. Here I'm just going to let it go, let it do its thing. It'll give us a pretty close track for our purposes here. Okay, so we've got our track now. We went forwards and backwards. Looked like going backwards gave us the best track. So we'll go ahead and just go down here to export tracking data. I always click on this After Effects transform data. It seemed to give me the best options, I guess, best imported data into After Effects. So we'll copy to clipboard, go back here, return to our After Effects. So once we're in After Effects, we'll want to go to Layer, New, Null Object. That'll put this little box and a new layer in our video. And with this new null object selected, you just go to Control V or just paste. And as you can see, the tracking data is now pasted into that null object. Before you paste, you want to make sure that you're at the very beginning of your composition here. So that way when you paste the tracking data, it actually pastes correctly and not like starting in the middle and continuing from there. So we've got our tracking data there. One caveat about the exporting from Mocha is that for some reason I always have to disable this anchor point here. If I don't, it doesn't quite track it correctly. I don't know what it does. It just imports something that kind of messes it up. But if you disable that, it does really nice. As you can see, it goes pretty well. Follows it pretty straight. So we've got that tracking data in there. Now we can grab our screen that we want to replace, just drag it down into here, go ahead and put that on top, which will just replace everything visually, but we can fix that by just shrinking it down. So we want to move this. I'm going to try to fill up most of the, I always try to fill up most of what we're going to be replacing. And then once we get it over there close, we want to go over here to the Effects and Presets box and click and type in corner pin. Go ahead and drag that onto the little screen clip, which allows us to actually distort the video. So then you just want to pin the corners. Oops, zoomed out there. Pin the corners to the screen. Stretch it to fit. Alright, so now that we've got it placed in there, zoom back out here. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so now we've placed it, but it's not quite following. So in order to get it to follow the tracking data that we pasted onto the null object, we want to drag this little whip icon from the screen clip onto the null object. And that's it. That's all you gotta do. Now it tracks If we go ahead and play it, you can see it follows along. It does shift a little bit, and that's partially because of our tracking data. It wasn't quite perfect. If we had spent a little bit more time making that tracking data tracking perfectly, then it would look a lot better. But for this demo here, this does well enough. Alright, so we've got the planar tracking fixed up. Looks fairly decent. Now we've got to move on to the green screen and keying out that green background. So I've got this short clip of just a guy with an assault rifle, whatever, shooting at you. And we're just gonna shrink him down and place him on that stack of games right here. So just drag that on back down to here to our composition. Go ahead and put it on top of everything. We won't. In order to scale it, keeping the dimensions, I always go down here. It's a little bit easier. Go ahead and scale it to whatever size you want it to be exactly. For this, the clip isn't quite cropped correctly, so we'll have to adjust the time to the way we want it to be. We'll start it right there. And yeah, so we've got him placed. Now we need to get rid of that green background. So to do that, go back over here to our little effects and presets box and type in key light. Drag that onto the green screen footage. And over here in our little box that pops up, we want to click on the eyedropper that is next to screen color. And then just go ahead and click anywhere on that green. And voila, it just gets rid of all that green for you. Pretty handy. So now that we can see what it looks like without that green, we can do a little bit more scaling and positioning and get it exactly where we want it to be. Alright, so he's placed without the green background, but he kind of stands still. Now you could go about doing this in two ways. You could track a new area, like something on these games or this handle back here, and then apply that tracking data to this green screen footage. Or in this case, since our shot is just panning, we can apply, or we can attach this soldier to the null object we did for the screen, and it actually works pretty well. As you can see here, we'll just go ahead and play the clip. He scoots a little bit, but for the most part, it follows pretty well. So it kind of worked out well for this clip. In a more complex motion film, then it's probably going to need a new track for itself. But this worked out nicely. So anyways, we've got all that now. Looks halfway decent, at least. So now we'll do a little bit of color correcting to make this a little bit easier on the eyes. So the color correcting is a little bit, it kind of goes on your own preference. I kind of like a blue tint to my film, so go over here to the effects and presets box and just type in levels. This is the easiest way I know of. Just go ahead and drag this onto make sure it's on the entire clip and not just on one of these little boxes. And this box over here, the effect controls box, pops up. And this is where you just kind of play around with these sliders here, and you can kind of get a feel for what they do just by doing drastic movements with them and then kind of putting it back to where it was. So I darken it a little bit, take this white down a little bit, and then I go to the reds, get rid of a little bit of reds. Go to blue, and it increased the blues a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That looks nice. It gives it a little bit more of that film feel. All right, well, that's pretty much everything. We covered a few of the basics: tracking, green screen, keying out the green in the background, color correcting. Those are some of the core basics, and with those you can do quite a bit. So in this clip we didn't spend a whole lot of time on each concept, but if you had spent a little bit more time on them, this clip could look a little bit better. Yeah, thanks for watching. That about covers it.